Okay, good morning. Council is convened for a couple of work sessions. This January 7th, 2026, we'll start out with employee benefit study informational overview with Laura.
Great. Good morning, Council. Laura Provalt, HR Director for Clark County. I am bringing forward today, I'm going to provide just a brief overview of the 2025 benefit study that the HR department conducted last year. Just to be clear, the session this morning is informational only and no action will be requested at this time. The goal is just to provide context ahead of the formal recommendations that will be brought forth in front of Council at the January 20th meeting. So with that, if you want to slide forward. So the purpose of this study, the study reviewed current benefit offerings across employee groups. We compared Clark County's benefits to regional public sector peers and also assessed internal equity. We also looked for gaps of overall competitiveness and opportunities for better alignment within our internal groups. Go ahead. The analysis covered a broad range of benefit areas. Those included life insurance, long-term and short-term disability, leave benefits, holidays, including floating holidays, long-term or longevity programs, and any other voluntary coverages that were offered with comparators. We also asked for any specific management specific benefits that other organizations were offering. And the focus of the review was on aligning existing benefits here at the county rather than doing a full redesign. That was not the intent of the survey. So with peer group and methodology, for comparison purposes, we did reach out to a total of 38 different counties and 5 cities across Washington and Oregon. There was a strong emphasis on the peer group that was used for the 2022-2023 Baker-Tilly compensation study, which also included the same 5 cities, but only 9 counties throughout Washington and Oregon. So very specific to Clark County and the region here. The information was gathered through outreach, data sharing, and available public sources, and the review was conducted internally by the HR benefits staff. Go ahead. So the key overall takeaways of that study, to not get into the weeds with everything, it was a lot of data that was gathered that took several months for our team to do. But overall, Clark County's benefits are very competitive. The represented employees they do have highly competitive packages. There are 13 labor groups or represented groups that we negotiate with on a regular basis, typically a 3-year contract. And so that's, they have opportunity to bring forth benefits that they would like to have, and we go through that negotiating process. However, what the study did reveal is that we do have some gaps that were identified between represented and non-represented employees, primarily affecting internal equity. These findings establish a baseline for future planning. So this was a really good exercise for our department to do. And then we can go, every 2 to 3 years and go back and do the same type of study to ensure that we are, again, competitive and then looking for internal consistency across our employee groups. So if you want to move forward. So 2026 proposed benefit changes. We are not proposing any changes for represented employees in this process. targeted adjustments for non-represented employees with a focus on equity and consistency across the groups. As a reminder, as I just said, we have 13 represented groups and we have 3 non-represented groups. The non-represented groups are categorized in, we refer as M3, which are non-represented, non-exempt, or hourly employees. There's approximately 124. Our M2 category are non-represented, exempt employees, and exempt means they are not eligible for overtime. That group of employee includes kind of senior to middle managers within the organization, frontline supervisors, and a variety of professionals within our organization. The approximate number of employees in that category is 320. Then the last group is our M1 group, which is non-represented exempt, again, not eligible for overtime. And this group includes department heads and then deputies within our elected departments. And there's approximately 23 M1 employees. So these proposed changes are intended to support recruitment, retention, and engagement while keeping costs manageable. You can go ahead and move forward. So I'm going to break down the variety of recommended changes. The first one being a leave accrual alignment for our M3 employee group. We are proposing transitioning the M3 employees to the M1 and 2 leave accrual schedule. This is just a slight increase for those M3 employees on what their leave accruals look like. This ensures consistency across non-represented classifications, and then again addressing the equity gap between these groups. This change is primarily administrative and improves fairness without increasing overall leave liability to the county. Go ahead and move forward. Leave accrual flexibility is the second recommendation we're making. This is specific to the M1 and M2 employee groups. Limited flexibility would allow for support of recruitment without changing the base policy. What we're looking to do is allow for a higher leave accrual upon hire. Any changes such as that would be subject to pre-approval by the HR director or designee to ensure that any changes such as this upon hire is being administered consistently across the county. For the M1 employees, the accrual would be based on prior years of experience with a maximum of a 15-year service credit. M2 employees, it would again be based on relevant prior experience with a maximum of 5 years of service credit. And then additionally, the ability to offer up to 80 hours of front-loaded leave upon hire. Again, these are items that would help with total compensation when we are bringing new employees in these categories into our organization. We have some restrictions, obviously, on salary we can offer as a public employer. So this would just add to ensuring we can get the right people into the right seats here at the county and a little bit better total compensation package. The next one is floating holidays. This is something that would be applied to all non-represented employees. So that includes the M1, M2, and M3 employees. This would be an increase in floating holiday to a total or an additional 2, which would mean a total of 3. Currently, we are offered just in these employees groups, it's one floating holiday. Or it would be, again, a total of 3, and this aligns with represented labor agreements. So all 13 of our other contracts that have floating holidays have a total of 3 currently. Just as a reminder, floating holidays are a use or lose type benefit within the calendar year. So again, if an employee does not use a floating holiday, they forfeit it at the end of the year, and then they receive new ones. So life insurance alignment, this is specific to the M3 employee group. The recommendation is to move M3 employees to the M1, M2 life insurance plan. That current plan coverage is 1 times annual salary up to $150,000. This change ensures consistency across the non-represented groups. It's an estimated annual cost increase of $6,500. It does address the equity concerns with a very minimal financial impact to the county. And the last recommendation is looking at exempt leave for our M1 and M2 employees. This recognizes additional hours worked by exempt employees. The recommendation is for our M1s. Again, these are your department directors, department heads, deputy directors in the elected offices. The M1s would be 80 hours annually. The M2 category would be 40 hours annually. The structure would be very similar to how our floating holiday system works, where it would be credited January 1st, but must be used within the calendar year. And any unused hours in the bank would be forfeited at the end of the year. Again, what this leave recognizes or acknowledges is the workload realities while avoiding long-term accrual liability. And again, the use it or lose it, if you will, structure limits the financial exposure to the county. So in closing, or in summary, our analysis confirms that Clark County benefits remain strong and competitive. The proposed changes are limited, targeted, and focused on non-represented employee groups. They create greater consistency within the non-represented groups and better alignment across represented and non-represented employees. The recommended changes will come to council, again, like I said at the beginning, via a staff report at the next meeting, January 20th, 2026. Do you have any? That's all I have today, but do you have any questions or comments for me this morning?
Great. Thank you very much. Good that this was able to be done in-house. So thanks for your work on this. Does council have any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks for this overview. I was just curious, what would be the maximum amount of leave possible under the most generous of the categories that were of the changes today? What is the maximum potential annual leave that a new employee could have under this scenario? Just trying to get a grasp of what this means.
So I want to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. When a new hire comes in, let's say you hire an M1 employee, they come in, we would credit them potentially based on past experience with likely other public sector employers. They could start accruing at the 15-year mark. And I'll be honest, at the top of my head, I can't remember what that accrual rate is right now. And we could potentially, if approved, provide them an 80-hour one-time I guess, infusion, if you will, into that leave bank upon hire. But that is just a one-time contribution, and starting them at that 15-year mark.
Okay, so the 15-year mark, say it's 4 weeks or
We'll
5
say
weeks.
maybe 25 days annually.
Okay, and then on top of that, we could potentially add a one-time 80-hour.
Yes, that would be within the leave accrual program. It would be just a one-time, and then they would just accrue as a 15-year service employee going forward.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure they're here
Yep.
working too.
Absolutely.
you.
Good question. Good question.
Other comments or questions? But Councillor Young?
I was just curious what the cumulative dollar impact is of this.
So with obviously the life insurance is a lot easier to equate because it's an actual benefit that we pay for. So the $6,500 overall, and this is something, I mean, Kathleen and I did discuss this. When it comes to leave benefits, it's a little bit more difficult to calculate exactly what the costs could be, because typically an employee comes in, they take their leave, right? So it's non-productive work time. But it's not something necessarily we could equate out in that regard. The exposure could potentially be when a employee leaves the county in good standing with 2 weeks notice, would be cashed out leave benefits. That's where the exempt leave that we're looking to that we're recommending is controlled within the year, right? So it's 80 or 40 hours within the year. But regular leave benefits would be at the time in which the employee exits the county. And it could be up to whatever there is a maximum amount that somebody can accrue in the calendar year, and they can't accrue any more than that. And again, off the top of my head, I cannot recall exactly what that exposure is. I apologize. We look at there's a lot of different levels out there. So it is more difficult to actually equate.
Yeah,
What that thing
that
is.
actually, I didn't think about that. It makes sense. So it's not, I mean, you would pay the same salary regardless. It's just a matter of what level of productivity is lost being absent.
That is correct. And I do want to be clear that when an employee requests to take time off, it does have to be approved by their supervisor. Even myself, I have to request leave approval from Kathleen to take time off. So non-productive time is one thing, but if it's going to impact operational, services, things here at the county, then it could likely be denied.
And if I could just remind council, in the budget as well, we do have one of the funding that we set aside is for leave cash outs. I believe it went up a little bit, but historically it's about 25% of the total cash out that we could do. So there is budget amount set aside for those cash outs when somebody separates service.
Okay, Councillor Belcott or Councillor Fuentes, any questions? Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I was wondering, in your comparisons, was childcare a benefit that anyone was offering?
That was not anything that came up in the analysis. We didn't have anybody report that they had childcare available.
Okay, and just to
Question.
provide a little bit of context, it's important for us to be a competitive employer, and it was not so long ago. And what compelled the Baker Tilly study was that we were not competitive, and has a direct impact on the services that we're able to provide. So this follow-up on the salaries is a really important component. And I'm going to ask a question that maybe isn't directly related to all of this, except I think it is related to attracting and retaining employees. And that's the project positions that came up in the discussion of the budget this year, and that there's a number of them. And I'm wondering if that's an impediment to attracting and retaining the highest quality employees. You may not know that, but I just wanted to keep that on the forefront because it's an issue that will continue to come around.
No, I guess I want to be clear on, are you asking if you believe that it's more difficult to recruit for project employees. Is that-
Yes, that's what some department heads have
Yeah.
offered.
I will say that it is more challenging because it's not a long-term, full-time position. And with certain levels within your organization, to have an end date to your employment of 2 years, it can create challenges for recruiting the right person for the right position.
Thank you.
And we'll be bringing back information on the
Okay.
project and also look at the sustainability, because I agree with Laura, it can create challenges, but I also know some of our departments, including our elected departments, have been able to transition them into permanent positions when people retire or leave. But we will bring a holistic view of project positions.
Great. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you.